Art Wasson,
Right.
who was supposed to make a big revenue sharing thing, and had the miners committee and stuff like that. I wrote a letter to Art Wasson recently, he didn't answer me. I sent him some of his articles that you're going to have now, so he doesn't want nothing. I think he wrote, a lot of super writers at that time write to me now, they write to me, I still have social concerns. And I think about that, how it is that the people I grew up with in that intellectual milieu after I'm independent now, working my own store, doing things. Jack Holtzman is out in Los Angeles, Artie Boston is out in Los Angeles, McDogan is out in Los Angeles. A lot of other people, all these people that have been shaken, out of the ashes out of the grill. There's a lot of people like me all over the place in New York, San Francisco, Colorado, half successes, half failures. The part of the field interesting. But the ones that made it economically, they were all in Los Angeles. Probably all horribly embarrassed by the riot that just took place a few months ago.
Jack Holtzman.
Jack Holtzman, I have a lot about him written down also. He is actually the oldest person in the modern folk music revival. He had this record shack or something on West 10th Street, which somehow, I was only there once or twice, because he didn't just have folk music there, he had other things there. And then he started Electra Records on Bleecker Street. And my relationship with him starts on Bleecker Street, but that is 57. Now, in 57, I opened my store. I may have met Jack Holtzman before, I don't think I knew him personally. And his brother, Keith. When I opened the store in 57, he had already put out records with Cynthia Gooding, Tom Paley. He put out some Caribbean records with Maya Dion. Put out Tom Paley, Frank Warner. So a lot of, all good records. He put out Speakers Flamenco. Put out really a lot of good stuff, which I bought all of them.
Right. So you were a retailer for him, weren't you? Just
Who told you that?
What?
Well, what happened was, that was the time, when I opened the store, it was exactly the time when 10-inch records were going out into 12-inch records. So I want to mention something to Judy Collins. I have Theo McKellar, of course. His album on Jewish songs is really a classic now. He did the Russian songs, international songs. Martha Schlamer, I think he did too. I think the quality holds up better than Riverside or anyone else at the time. Anyway, he was getting rid of these records.
I think my son is very free. Okay, this is a continuation of the interview with Israel Young. It is August 4th, 1992.
So I'd like to start off today talking about recordings in my life in folk music. So when I was a kid, I told you I bought Bing Crosby records and Frank Sinatra records, Doris Day, whatever it was, records. And then I became interested in folk music at the age of 17 through these group songs that Margot Mayles and these political songs that which I didn't accept. But I bought the whole idea of singing traditional songs, church songs, every other kind of song you can think of. Everything except Jewish songs, which is interesting to me now much later. That I, as a Jewish kid from the Bronx, the ghetto, could sing Southern Appalachian songs about Christmas and Mary and Joseph with a straight face. I can't understand that now. Well, anyway, then I would start buying some 78s. Then I got the Harry Smith collection later. I started off with the Alan Lomax, Listen to Our Story, and some dance records. Now, these were commercial recordings of the 20s, which I didn't even realize they were commercial. I just liked them. And it's interesting to me that the commercial people in America actually made the important folk music collecting, not the Library of Congress, not the Smithsonian, not the archives. So most of the valuable music that's coming out now is actually on commercial recordings. In other words, people from New York City go down south selling the people their music, whether it's black music or Polish music or Jewish music or Italian music.
And initially, from what if I can interject, from what I understand, that was not done to sell it to other communities.
No,
sell it within the indigenous community that
right.
created the music.
So it was sold to a black community, Jewish community, Italian community, Polish community. Now, every group of people that's interested, now they're interested in klezmer music, quote. I never heard that word in my life in New York City until I moved to Sweden. I mean, I knew the word as an intellectual, but I never heard it spoken. All that stuff is also on commercial recordings. Well, that's one thing. Then I start getting active. I'm listening to Frank Warner and Josh White and Richard I. Bennett. And I'm getting their records. And Simpy Gooding and everybody else, and Sabikis. And I basically find no difference between the recording performance and the person on the stage. So when you heard Leadbelly on the stage, and you hear some of the recordings, it sounds like Leadbelly on the stage. Some of the recordings are horrible now when I listen to Leadbelly. He really washed up everything for the wide audiences. I heard Leadbelly recently, later recordings, and I asked my friend, who was that? So it's Leadbelly. I said, it can't be Leadbelly. I heard Leadbelly on stage. But the point I'm making is that the recording at that time, in the 40s, whether it's Bob Gibson or Leadbelly or Reverend Gary Davis, recorded in Kenny Goldstein's kitchen, was to bring back what you heard on the stage. And so what you heard on the stage was what you heard in the recordings. So when I listened to the recordings, I was actually thinking of the person that was singing, because I'd seen them all in concerts. Now coming to our time now, the recording is not what you see on the stage. So we'll go back in the middle stages later. That started with Jack Holzman and things like that, that they started adding finesses to recording, which do not exist on the stage. And now I'm saying they've just gone to such a point now that a performer cannot do on stage what is on the record. My friends in Stockholm now tell me they don't want to go to concerts because they don't know if it's going to be good or not, but they know the director's good. My kid, she's just beginning to learn my point. Like my kid will go with me. We go to the theater or to a concert, and so theater concerts 1 out of 10 nights is really great. My kid understands that. The other nights, well, it doesn't work. This is the way it is. She likes the idea of live people on the stage. But now there's tremendous resistance in Stockholm to go to jazz concerts, to go to pop music concerts. Well, it's gone too far that nobody can duplicate the sound of recording. And now it's very acceptable now. Sweden, of course, it's come from America to hear playback music. And now ballet groups use playback music. TV has playback, which is, they should be saying, it should be said on the screen that this is playback music. So it's interesting that when it's pop music, it's acceptable to have playback. That means this Irish woman singer is pop now. You can see she's trying to remember how it goes on the record. It has nothing to do with the live performance. And the people accept that, whereas an opera singer wouldn't do that playback belonging. So that's all I want to say about that now.
Let me, on a related area, something that I'm interested in pursuing a little bit. In response to my question a few moments ago, you said that initially the commercial recording interests who preserved some of the vernacular music were doing it to sell in the communities out of which it came. At some point, probably in the 50s, certainly by the 60s, and I think it started in the 50s, you can elaborate, there was an effort made to bring some music out of the tradition and sell it to, say, an urban audience. And I know that Kenny Goldstein and you talk a little bit about the people that were involved in doing that and what their motivations were, and how they, consider yourself Kenny Goldstein.
When I met Kenny Goldstein is a very important figure in the acidification or the urbanization of folk music, because he is a kingpin. There's no way you can avoid him, and that's where his business comes in now. That people avoid him. He's neglected thoroughly, and I've attacked him plenty, but behind his back I support him more than anybody else. I don't attack him behind his back. But when I met him, he was doing recordings for Stinson. And actually I have a recording session written up in the notebooks, which you'll enjoy. And Then he started, then he was doing, I don't remember the exact order anymore, Folkways. And then he was doing Electra. Then he did this company in New Jersey. Prestige. He did Prestige.
And Riverside, I think.
And, well, Riverside was first thing, practically. But he was working with at least 5 companies simultaneously, which I can't understand now. In other words, Kenny Goldstein was deciding which companies get which recordings, which artists. So he was like an A&R man. He was the first A&R man in what we call reaching out to ordinary people in the big cities rather than in other words, when he recorded Reverend Gary Davis, he wasn't recording him to send back home to people in Long Island City. He was sending it to people in San Francisco and Colorado. So I don't think he thought of it that way. He became part of this process. In other words, Stinson and Folkways realized that there was a market for this, and I'm not saying market in a bad way. In other words, we're living in a commercial economy, and even when you have good ideas, you have to reach out commercially.
There were people in the cities who would like it, basically, is what you're saying.
Well, also, they
it.
couldn't put it out if people weren't buying it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there was a growing interest, which was bypassing the left-wing ideology that brought a lot of this into play. Now, I don't think that Kenny Goldstein was ever really a left-winger. I've never quite understood his politics. And, but there he was, the kingpin in this whole area, which should be investigated more and written about. But he decided aesthetically, commercially, which records were going to be sold and to which people. And if you wanted to be heard at that time, you had to go to Kenny Goldstein. And Kenny Goldstein went to England, did work there, researched there, he brought back people here. And I never see his name in any of the research. I never hear him read anything about Kenny.
Now, Kenny's work in the 50s was not devoted towards signing and developing new commercial acts from the cities. He was really looking for people outside the cities to bring...
Well, he did both, though.
Did he develop, say, new commercial artists at all? I don't see much of that.
Well, we didn't call it developing at that time, or he made something available. So when he recorded Odetta and the Classy Brothers, he wasn't thinking the way an A&R man now is. In other words, I never heard him ever tell somebody what songs to sing. And he has, I can't think of the guy that written recording session. And the only thing we ever hear would say, well, maybe do that song again. Or maybe that was too slow. But he never, no such thing as where he would tell him what repertoire to sing.
How about Jack Holtzman? What was his influence on
well, Jack Holtzman
availability
is
of folk music?
Textbook case in commercialism, because he was always interested in making money. And you can always say that whenever I met Jack, he was always telling me about the latest group he was putting on. It's really the greatest. It's really, see what's going to happen. But in one of the notebooks, I don't have it in front of me, in 1967, when did the Doors make it? No, 67? Well, I have a time peg there. Jack Holtzman was putting out these good folk music records, very high quality compared to Folkways and Stinson. I mean, they couldn't compare to him. I don't think Kenny made records with Jack Holtzman. He might have made one or two, but I don't think so.
He didn't make the records for him.
Okay, I don't remember that, but I wouldn't be surprised if he made one or two. So Jack Holtzman had his idea of quality recording. Plus he knew about recording technique. I mean, Kenny, I have to talk about Kenny in the sense of I had a conflict with Joe Boyd a few months ago. He had this English company. You know Joe Boyd? Joe Boyd? I can't even think of the name now. It was a big company which has just been bought out by Ryko. So you know Ryko?
I know.
So he comes to my store, and I tell him, I heard this song on the radio. It's an English group that he's producing. And I said, they've improved an old classic erotic English song with synthesizer and things like that. And I said, baloney. You don't need the improvement. I'm still standing for those. Because I have a recording of A.L. Lloyd doing erotic songs in my store in the village, which should be presented now. And there's just a man singing, just a voice, no guitar used. And it's sexy and more erotic than this, with it telling you how to be erotic, music signs like in a movie. And he says, you don't know what you're talking about, is it? So they had an interview with this Joe Boyd, B-O-Y-D. We can come back to him later. And he said, well, he had these Bulgarian singers, La Voix, they Bulgaire. I saw them in Stockholm finally. He said, I let them hang around my house for 3 or 4 days, just to loosen up, relax. Then we recorded for about a week or so. Then on the radio, he said, the mixing takes 6 months. So my raise my danders up, what is that called? Dander, my dander up. Getting American expression after 20 years this week. And I react to this, and when I see him, when he comes to my store, the first thing I do is attack him and says, how could you edit something for 6 months? He said, I never said that, Izzy. He says, yeah, you said on the radio that, there's a process of making friends with the singers, making them feel at home in your home recording studio, and then you record for a week or 2 weeks, and then you edit it for 6 months. You're full of shit, Izzy. I never said the word editing. Then he says, oh, what you mean is he is mixing. So I said, well, then I am still in the mindset that Kenny Goldstein was, because he was editing. What do you call that? Editing was, he had a razor blade, and he would cut a song off, and then maybe put song number 3, number 2, and that was as much as he did. That changed already. I saw with Peter Paul and Mary when it took 167 takes to take this out. I was sitting in a session, and I ended up putting a piece of 167 with 59 with 123. And I'll tell you, when it came off, you didn't hear the difference. Now you can probably hear the difference. Well, Billy Fair, the art of the 5-string banjo, there's a lot of splicing at that time, they call it, but not mixing as we call it now. And or a friend of mine in Stockholm, he's an Englishman, and he's with a guitar, and he's feeling very down because there's no jobs for English singers unless they're famous American singers or something. And he puts music to a Dylan Thomas song, poem, The Meaning of Death. And I think, God, it's really nice. And I write a letter to Pete about this. And there's this guy singing with the guitar and the voice. And that's going to come back, and people are going to call that exciting. They call it acoustic now. And then this guy invites me home a week later again. He said, listen, Izzy, I want to listen to something. So I listen to something. I don't hear a word. I don't hear all kinds of synthesizers and things. And I say, oh, no, it's a pile of shit. What is this? He says, come on, Izzy, don't you know that's the song that I sang for you last week that you like so much? I said, no, it's not. Well, Izzy, the mixing is not finished yet. It's just the rush job of mixing. So there's a tremendous stress on mixing, which I'm still very unaware of. I mean, how it's worked, the manipulation, I don't know what equalizers mean. In our day, there was no such thing as equalizer. You just had a record to put it on. You hardly knew the difference between bass and treble, barely. But it was recognizable as what you heard on the stage. And I think that is killing artistry. Everybody's put into that same mold. Now, Kenny never edited anything. He never told the people what to sing. He might dig up something, but I can tell you something secret about Kenny Goldstein. He once told me that since nobody knew as much about folklore and the idea of music as he does, that he could do a song that you and McCall sang, but better than you and McCall. He would have the earphones that piping in you and McCall singing, and then he was singing with the true understanding that only a folklorist has. But that was just a temporary moment of madness on his part. But he really felt that. In other words, at some point, as a folklorist, you have to believe that you know what's going on. So that's one of the two weaknesses I can point out. You can when you see him, you're planning to see him.
Yes.
Ask him about that. If he sang better than you, if he could sing better than you and McCall. Now, I get turned on by you and McCall. And 4 Pence a Day and all those other songs. that was a revolution in America. He actually started the English. I'm saying this the first time. He actually started the interest in English folk songs in America. Like you want to call Hail White. And when I heard those first recordings, he may not have made all the recordings from England, but he arranged the topic to get them to America.
He referring to Kenny.
Yeah, referring to Kenny. He opened up the American market for that. And I swear he's never gotten any credit for that. Because when I heard Ewan McCall the first time, it was a 10-inch, 4 pence a day, I think the record was called, a 10-inch record. That opened my eyes the way listen to our story of Alan Lomax and Harry Smith later. So, I think I told you I was his lead belly. I used to take him in the car in my car, the cars that and he would tell me what to do. But I told you he was always magnanimous with his collection for me. And the recording session with Gary Davis and Nancy Brothers in his kitchen in the Bronx is unbelievable. They're very good recordings today. Okay, that's enough for Kenny Goldstein now.
Okay, but moving on into other people. We talked a little bit about Jack Holzman and
Oh, Jack Holzman. Well, Jack Holzman, I have a time peg. It's my word. The exact minute. Oh, turn off the machine. Put it back on. I have the exact minute in which folk music changed into commercial music.
Okay.
I'm sitting with Jack Holzman, and as I told you before, since I have no economic stake, I can go free with anybody's offices, which it's a miracle now. I'm sitting with Jack Holzman, and he says, Izzy, we just did a recording with Doors, didn't mean anything, and we'll know in, I forgot, but I have the exact words, in 2 weeks or 10 weeks, this is going to be a big hit. Now, I never heard Mo West talk that way, or Kenny Goldstein, or anybody. In other words, that is the exact moment in which Jack Holzman begins.
Well, that's interesting. I want to explore that a little bit, because the Doors first recorded in 1967. Are you telling me that folk music did not become commercial until 1967?
It was plenty of commerce, but it wasn't big-time commerce.
How about Peter, Paul, and Mary selling a few million copies of an album in 1963?
But this is multinational.
Okay.
This is the first time it's a springboard to the whole world. You understand? In other words, Al Grossman is not going to go down into history. He's a piker now. He's the first one that actually exploited singers in total commercial sense, the way they did all the black musicians and everybody else involved. Where Al Grossman developed the idea, first the manager gets a chunk of the music, then he has a recording studio where he gets a chunk of the music, then he owns a record company that sells a chunk of the music, then he has a music published holding company, which is another chunk of the music. Then he has Bob Dylan. Then he sells the Bob Dylan song to Peter, Paul, and Mary. She also owns and manages everything like that. So he was the first one actually that folk music that invented the concept of a manager being so important that he would get slices, he would get sloppy. He ended up with more money than Bob Dylan on some of Dylan songs. Because he owned the company, he would get 50%. Then as manager, he would get 20% of Dylan's thing. Then he would get 5% of this and other. So Dylan would get 25% of his own songs. Where in normal capitalism, you get 50% of your own songs. So he developed that to a great extent, but who's the guy that just got killed in a helicopter?
Bill Graham.
Bill Graham, he went further than Al Grossman. Because when he died, he had about 54 companies under his name. When I knew him at Berkeley, he had only 17 companies. And Bill Graham took it a stage further than Al Grossman. And we're still talking quote about folk music.
Sure.
Because we knew these people knew. Where he owned or ran the stadiums where the music was being played. Which is what the Japanese are doing now for the greatest stage. So Al Grossman never really hit overseas. So Jack Holzman was the first in the folky business with his, I'll know in a certain period of time. Whoever heard of putting out a Girl Lives record at certain times. You never see Pete Seeger on the stage today saying, "Oh, this is a new song from my latest album. It's very good to me." People coming to Sweden, really. In other words, the record now is the reason for performance on all levels. Which at my time, the performer sang. That's how I made a living. Then he hoped that somebody might buy a record later on and get some royalties. But now they tour. The tour is part of the advertising for the record. The tours don't make money, except as pointed out yesterday. Basically, they're the only ones that make money out of the tours. So all the others are complaining. I said, what are they complaining about? Because this Thomas Bafumo from Zimbabwe was in Sweden last year, and he's supposed to represent the political forces in Zimbabwe. His manager in New York, I won't say which religious group he belongs to, so I don't want to call that Semitic. And he gets up on the stage there and says, "You have to understand tonight that Bafumo doesn't feel so hot, and it may not be a great show, usually, but he's number 20 on the world music charts, which I know doesn't mean anything. And he's done 250 concerts this year, and you have to understand he's tired." So I don't have to understand he's tired. People pay $25 to hear him. You understand? And I didn't pay $25. I got it free as a press. But the whole idea, I said, well, this guy didn't have to sign a contract with this unnamed religious person in New York City to do 250 concerts. So the guy does a terrible concert, and everyone's telling how great he is. And he has two thumb piano computer players, but it's electrified now. And now, my picture of thumb piano is that it's very nuanced, a little soft tones. But with these electrification, everyone's telling you, now solve the problem of electricity and focus. And I don't hear thumb piano, I just hear like a baby piano. You know, the kids playing. That's all you hear. You don't hear middle tones, quarter tones, tenth tones, or anything. You just. So here's a guy that supposedly represents modern folklore, roots in Africa, and I hear all the groups sound exactly the same.
Yes, was Holt then?
Okay, was Holtzman?
I wanted to ask you if you moved in as simply an aficionado of music. That's how you got into the business of the folklore center and folk music.
Folk.
Right. Was that Holtzman? Was that Maynard Solomon? Or were they simply businessmen who saw an opportunity, a commercial opportunity?
Well, Maynard Solomon is his family put out classical music records, and they saw money we made.
Okay, so that's, and Holtzman you would say is
Well, I think
the same thing,
if it
perhaps.
comes to the crunch, I think I prefer electric recordings in general. I still stick out of my mind at Vanguard. I told you I took up about this to Vanguard. He told me later. When I went to visit Maynard Solomon once with Sam Charters, Dakota House by Central Park, he showed me he had a first edition 1851 Bud. What is that?
Herman Melville's.
Herman Melville's, yeah. So shabby book, wasn't worth a quarter. He showed me very proudly that first edition, 1851, Bud. So I said, God, my cellar is filled with thousands of first editions of poetry. Since New York, it works. And I didn't ask him, well, what do you have the first edition today of poetry? And he lived this beautiful, very expensive Dakota, which I'll tell you, one floor. So the building is only on one floor. But I consider him a crass businessman. Sam Charles was working at the end
For Solomon.
Doing both of them records. And it was really shameful. One of the last times I saw the stock, I said, yeah, well, I'm doing both of them records now. And we get this music, we sit in the office, and we have to do it faster for the white crowd, and even faster for the homosexual crowd. You know, there's how black people, big asses, they don't swing as fast, so we have to slow it down. We sit in the office, we slow it down, so mathematically the tones aren't changed. So total manipulation. And I actually write in one of my columns that, well, now he's working with Vanguard, jobs and jobs. I write something sarcastic about it. I understand that Ron Cohen is actually succeeding getting into
Solomon?
Sam Charles.
Oh, I don't know.
Because he doesn't want to talk to people. And Solomon is a careful cat. He never saw him around the boat the way he saw Jack Holtzman. And Jack Holtzman also is part of the commercial process of what we call folk music. I bought Judy Collins' book last year. So, and her story is actually a folk story. I didn't expect it. I mean, it's like British cover and all that kind of stuff. I can't read Joe Byers' book with the voice of singing or whatever it's called. I can't get past 2 pages of that. It's just her own personality. I can't get any meat out of it. But she has meat in there. And she gives credit to everybody, including Izzy Young. She says that I went to Izzy's store all the time. Well, she writes that in the daytime I would hang around Izzy's store where everyone else did. And I can't think of the guy's name now. She said I introduced her to some singer, Billy Ed Wheeler. She never heard of Billy Ed Wheeler before she came to my store. So when I read that, I understood that was my function in the store in the village. I will tell everyone everything that's going on. So in Baby Let Me Follow You Down, they also write about me. It's the first encounter with Catholics from Boston coming down to visit this crass Jewish guy in the village. And we go into the store and the songbook for England and bluegrass that you've never seen anywhere else. So, but I read that now. So all these people have this picture of a very crass Jewish, obviously Jewish guy with a big mouth, talking and embracing people. And the death of this Fred Trice, I don't think I have it here, but they wrote him in Bluegrass Unlimited, that he came to the folklore center or the concert I was putting on with the Friends of Old Time Music. And he's standing against the wall. And so why is standing against the wall? Because if I get away from the wall, he's come over to embrace me. And the article shows something. He writes that grown men in Kentucky don't embrace other grown men. And he said to this other guy, we'll do the same thing to you also. So I had this great reputation of being a big talker, but when he wanted to find out something, he had to. So I can't explain why my interest was, whether it's good thinking or anything else. People always come to me with the oddball inquiries. Now, Judy Collins writes that she doesn't know her history enough. When Warner takes over Elektra, they produced a whole record for us. They never put it out. And they said, how could you put in $200,000, $300,000 making a recording and you don't put it out? Well, so she compared that with Duke Ellington, going to the company one day, I think, the same boss. They told him no more records. So she put herself in the Duke Ellington, but she forgets something. That Jack Holtzman made his first money, his first $1 million, putting out on dailies that he could have Schlama. Everybody, Sabikas. And then, when he made his first $1 million, when he moved from the village to 14th Street, between 14th Street and Columbus Circle, he instituted a cost price system that if a record doesn't sell 11,000 copies a year, then it's not economic. Then he puts it out. So it owed me Frank Warner. And Frank Warner was the one that raised Jack Holtzman. Jack Holtzman come and visit him, would tell him all the stories. And Frank Warner was 70 days of real estate. And he got a tennis. And I said, look, it cut you out, Frank. You have to understand. It was the Swedish expression, you have to understand. I said, you don't have to understand. It cut you out. You cut out something good and you cut out Tom Daly. Now, if these people were good to make the first $1 million, how could he dump them? So what Judy Collins learns now, that process is a continuing, ongoing process. Now, Jack Holtzman was always solicitous for his artist, and he believed in his artist. Now, I don't know how much of that is hype and how much he really believed, but he followed through with good quality recordings, better quality than anybody else had.
I've got the sense now of you're opening your store. Kenny Goldstein is sensing an audience for folk music in the city. He's starting to record this stuff on various labels.
Royal High School.
Right. But same period from mid to late 50s, this is going on. Holtzman is starting to market folk music on Elektra Records.
Music Shack.
Right. And all of this is going on in the 50s. Do you have any sense from being around there of why this audience was developing at that time? Why was there a city audience for that music?
Well, one explanation.
And I don't know if you've written down this or...
No, I haven't done that, really. Because I'm part of that process.
Yes, but it's hard to...
Obviously, I couldn't open my store. I didn't know... I was saying, what the hell am I opening the store for? 3 weeks before I opened it. But, obviously, I couldn't even think of opening it unless I thought there was something out there.
Well, let me look. Let's focus on a... well, go ahead. If you want to respond to that.
Okay. It should be the wrong introduction.
Yeah.
You broke its train of thought. Okay. The difference that I saw between folk music and pop music was folk music you could be part of it. Folk music you could like my own personal series of concerts, not only my concert, but the Nannies, Swapping Song Fairs, which we'll come back to another time, because I'll have to put that all together. There was no difference between the concert audience, and I told you I was proud afterwards that I knew everyone in the audience, I knew everybody on stage, everyone manipulated the managers. You could go up to a singer afterwards. So Bob Dylan would be singing, or Josh White would be singing, or Led Belly would be singing, then he'd be singing next to Led Belly, singing next to Josh White. Okay, you got to the next stage where not everybody could do it. In other words, that was one of the privileged ones. I get a pass and do for it. I could meet anyone I wanted, and I was happy. I think I did it cheaply. But still, anybody can go up to anybody, basically. Until the 60s. Until Newport started that whole thing where I finally invited to Newport to teach dance with Margot Mayo. I'm living in the barracks of a school with 12 guys in a room. Margot Mayo was living with 12 women in a room. But Joan Baez is living in and Judy Collins is in so I could okay, can I say something about Newport now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Separate now, Newport Folk Festival. I have specific written things on that of the time. I have more things written down. There's one day, okay, I'll talk about all about the 2 things now. And I wrote about it in Sing Out, which isn't mentioned in the book on the paper on Newport. I'm there, and Fred McDowell, another person played on flute. He plays for 2 minutes to open the show. And I go to Ralph Lisbon and he said, "How can you get this? Try to do it in 2 minutes. Izzy gets one impact." He says, And you can see it sitting there. And I have a deposition on this, the papers all written down. And Yulkazi sings 3 songs. Sings one an old ballad, one a funny song, and one a sad ballad. Something which then John Cohen writes about Lady Gay in Sing Out magazine, which he associates with Bob Dylan. Now, Yulkazi had no say in what songs he could sing. Because John and Ralph told him to sing. And he said he would never come up north again. This horrible party. Tim Buckley, Janis Joplin, John Cohen jumping on Janis Joplin. You have no right to sing the Cuckoo because that's what was it? One of the guys that does all this. Okay. Well, anyway, then he went up to Taj Mahal and told him, "What?
Hobart Smith.
No.
Okay.
And he told Taj Mahal he had no right to sing the song. But what right did John Cohen, a Jewish guy from Long Island, have to sing it with Tom Paley? In other words, the changing of the contact with music was that I listened, and people like me listened to old recordings as much as we discovered old recordings. Now, the new West City Ramblers, instead of presenting old recordings, they presented themselves. So the kids were getting New West City Ramblers version. Now, even I am surprised when I hear old recording. Wait a second, why did the kids get that stuff? Why? I liked the Ramblers at the beginning. I put them on in the first concert. They didn't have a name in the second concert. What? Well, bring me back to track.
Okay, we were talking just about moving, why this music was developing popularity among.
So the kids that were the next generation of people after me were not getting they weren't hearing the old records, but they were hearing people like the New York City Ramblers. Now, what I was saying was, I grew up in the atmosphere that you could meet anybody you wanted to. And I had a book that would be worth $1 million now. I lost it on the subway. I had a little line. I liked the song by Frank Warner. I wrote out the words and I had them sign it. Nobody got me signed it. I thought he signed it. Richard Douglas. That book would be in the museum now. And so it was a miracle that we could meet these people, but I didn't know about the left-wing backgrounds of all these things. The kids that come after me don't know anything about the left-wing, but they do get a sense that they can be part of it. Now, Newport is actually at the end of this process. Now, this is the end of the process in '63 already. So there is, which you're not going to get any sense of in this book, Freight Train, Elizabeth Cotton is singing. She sings 2 songs on stage. She wants to sing another song. And Ralph brings his grave and says, oh, I'd like to sing another song. I can't sing another song. So Judy Collins sings, she sings 45 minutes. Penrith is singing for 35 minutes. Nobody is telling them which 2 songs to sing. Nobody is making an analysis of Judy Collins. And Oliver Guthrie sings. And Oliver Guthrie sings for 45 minutes. And when it's through, George Wein steps on stage. The real guy who's running the show. Not all these nice people you see the names. And I actually mentioned that somewhere in my articles. That are just flunkies for George Wein. And George Wein runs up on the stage and he says, Oliver Guthrie! Oh, to whip up clapping for Oliver Guthrie. And I'm in the pit because I could be in the photographer's pit, sort of like leaning down so I could sleep when I wake up just when something was good. But really, I had the best seat in the place because I could hear them, not just with the microphone system. And I yelled, Buell Kazee! Buell Kazee! Buell Kazee! And at the party later that night, Arlo said, what were you yelling in the pit there? And he said, I said, I was yelling Buell Kazee. He said, oh, that's right, you're right. Because another night, I don't know if it was that same year, the Kingston Trio was there, and the Stanley Brothers. It may be another group, but I think it was the Stanley Brothers. You can check it, you have to listen to it back. But it was a group like the Stanley Brothers. Now, the Kingston Trio was supposed to finish the show. The Stanley Brothers, in other words, folk music, workshop. Stanley Brothers come on stage, people start booing. 12,000 people is a lot of people in those days. Even a lot of people today. They start booing. So George Wein comes on the stage and said, listen, people, I know you want to hear the Kingston Trio, so let's make a compromise. The Kingston Trio will now come on the stage and sing 2 songs. Then we'll bring Stanley Brothers. So you can imagine the feeling that the Stanley Brothers had.
And then we'll get them off.
And then we'll get them off, and then you can hear the Kingston Trio. And then the backstage, the musicians are all jamming and having a good time. And I think the only reference to this is in one of my columns. And then they go on the stage, they play some crap music compared to the music they were playing behind the stage. And even then they were saying, well, look, we play this music backstage because we like it. But on stage, we play what the audience wants, the American expression. We have to give them what they want. In other words, the only thing these kids have heard is recordings. So already in '63, it's finished all these ideas I had about Josh White singing on the stage is the same as Josh White singing on the record. Josh White on stage is the same thing as Josh White singing at the Communist Party function. I don't know the Communist Party function that I was singing at, Woody Guthrie or Lead Belly or whatever. And so there's a complete change in a very short period of time. So we could actually investigate how it could happen so quickly. Because my feelings now and even later was that America will make money out of anything, no matter how the where it comes from. They sense there's money to be made out of it. Like I give you a contemporary example. I see the movie JFK in Stockholm. It's a lousy movie, it's a propaganda movie. But there's some kernels of information in that. And that's based on Jim Garrison's book. Jim Garrison's book was published in 1984 in Greenwich Village by some equivalent of Z magazine. You've seen that? Noam Chomsky has a little intellectual left-wing magazine. It's a very good magazine, unreadable. 4 pages of analysis why so-and-so made the wrong statement, this medium or that medium. A lot of self-importance. But it's a really good magazine. And the book was advertising, the equivalent of this magazine called Z. And it's published in a village. Rented looks like a tenement house. That means it's in somebody's back room. And it, to what I understand, sold 2,000 or 3,000 copies. My friend is turned on by the film. He calls his mother in Chicago to get the book. Jim Garrison loved the book, it's called. And so his mother came prepared to look for the book. And she wrote it down on a piece of paper, the title and the name. And she gets to this bookshop in Chicago. The whole window was this book. So the book has sold millions of copies now. And who is the publisher? One. So I'm saying that means America will sell anything. If I think they'll sell revolution, they'll sell black culture, if it sells. Well, I said, if there was money to be made in movies on revolutions, Hollywood will make the best movies on revolutions. They'll have the best technique, the best artists, the best writers. Why did all the Bertolt Brecht, all these German writers that wanted to be German, why did they come to Hollywood? All the musical lives in Hollywood, they make shit movies in Hollywood. You could have the whole stretch of that, including folk music, that became very malleable in the field of business. Now, Jack Holzman did it, obviously, and Manny Solomon kept up with everything that was going on. He had the rights to Newport, which Jack Holzman was interested in. He was interested in making it. So he dumped all his old friends, basically. Well, he didn't dump them personally, but he dumped them in the way they
as far as being recording artists for him.
He dumped them all.
Simply because they were not going
selling
to be
11,000.
Yeah.
So I'm living in a world where 11,000 was a lot. 11,000 is still a lot. For a lot of people we know, 11,000, they sell 11,000, they're very happy. Okay, so it's not I can't do it in an exact numerical, chronological order. I just want to say I never slid consciously or unconsciously into other modes of existence. In other words, I'm still to this day working the way I worked when I first started. Direct contact with the audience, which I don't have in Sweden anymore. Direct contact with the musicians that I don't have anymore, but I'm still trying for that. Now, at Newport, because you're studying about Newport, okay, I'll say, for my money, the best Newport festival was the first one, run by Al Grossman. 59. I enjoyed that the most. And Grossman really treated me like a sport. They gave me the best place to be in. I was invited to all the parties. And then when it became a cooperative, I felt like I was outside of what I call a communist dictatorship. You have to understand this kind of thing I was getting. Well, with Al Grossman, you had a Dead the first time, and Cynthia Gooding, and I think Frank Warner. And he was picking out not just his own people, but what he thought was a good commercial festival on a much lower scale than later on. Now, they started developing this idea of workshops. And I was at these workshops also, Hal Lomax and Margaret Mayo and Kenny Goldstein. And I became part of every workshop that took place around. And these workshops existed for a group of folkies, or folkmen, as they call them. And these workshops would consist of anywhere from 20 to 50 to 100, maybe 200 people. Elizabeth Cotton would sing, Fred Price would play something, or any of these people. Then what I objected to strenuously was, because Ralph Prince would say to me, well, if somebody wants to listen to Elizabeth Cobb, they can listen to her for 3 hours, on the grounds. So I said, yeah, well, why don't 12,000 people listen to her? You understand? Why does Fred McDowell only play 2 minutes? I thought he said had more impact. So you mean Olive Guthrie needs 45 minutes to make an impact that Fred McDowell or Elizabeth Cotton? She has so much contact that she has to stand and say, gee, I'd like to sing another song, but Ralph, my best friend, says I can't sing it. John Cohen's sitting there inside there telling me I shouldn't sing that song. I'll do it to see. Anyway, they had workshops, which meant a caste system. It's the first time I'm using that word, caste. The caste. C-A-S-T-E. Caste system, in that the original people that were the reason for this whole folk music festival thing are relegated to a lower area called workshops, where the few people like you or me or Ron Cohen would be at these things, sure. But that meant that the 12,000 people or the 20,000 people hanging around weren't interested in the folk people. They were interested in the ones that were commercially attractive, like the Kingston Trio in this case. So you can check it out. I'm at the Philly Folk Festival, and I'm running some political thing or something like political songs or whatever, protest songs, which is called that. And Tom Paxson was there. I'm not sure if he's in the panel or in the audience. And I said, anyone that sings only their own songs is a businessman. So Tom Paxson gets furious at me, because that was my argument with the singer-songwriters. All these people that wanted auditions, Doreen asked me yesterday, all these people that came to me with auditions, they were singing only their own songs. So I said, if you sing only your own songs, why should somebody listen to your song? I said, I don't understand what he's saying. So I said, well, there can't be 10,000 people writing 50 good songs each. And then in those days, I would be invited home to people, and rich people would take me out to the island and boat trips, and when I was home, I would have to pay the prices for 6 songs they wanted my opinion. I have these in my notebook. I would be unconscious when I came to that point. The people battering me. Well, I told you even 2 days ago, my niece's daughter was doing this Italian musician. They got this racist thing in America. But my family hates this guy, but this guy could be a nice guy. I don't know. Anyway, I say anyone that sings only his own songs is just out for himself, doesn't give a shit about the public or other people or the field, the folk music field. So Tom Paxson gets furious. You don't know what you're talking about, Izzy. You're full of shit. You're this, that, the other thing. So in the evening at the festival, I think Mike Cooney was introducing me. Who's the other guy from the radio station down there? For 30 years.
In New York?
No, in the Philly Festival.
Oh.
That doesn't make a difference. He gets up on the stage and he does a extra set, cowboy songs. 3 cowboy songs, which was really good. I like when he sang cowboy songs. In other words, he disassociated that from the business set of singing for 20,000 people lying on the grass. In other words, you don't mix folk music with pleasure with business. At the same, Olive Guthrie is there, and his mother is there. What's her name? Marjorie. She's there. And you're getting a little bit of my style. I'm only here 2 weeks. I'm not back to full strength yet. Well, because I'm not surrounded by it as much. I said, look, here's Olive Guthrie complaining about people asking him to sing Alice's Restaurant. I said, I don't understand what the complaint is about. So Olive Guthrie said, what are you talking about? I'm an individual, or whatever he says. You're not an individual. You have 12 people working full-time, pushing the song, T-shirts, records, books, comic books, restaurant chain, film, TV, stories. I don't think it was on TV yet, but you have the whole gamut. 12 people working full-time, like it's nothing. Today, Garcia must have 100 people working full-time, 200 people. You're telling people to sing your song, listen to your song, eat your song, play your song, or wear your song, do all these things. Your song is advertised and sell cars or everything. And then you come here to the festival, you're just a private little person. You're not a private little person. Everyone that buys your book owns 25 cents of you. Because you got 25 cent royalty, you got 50 cent royalty on this. Everyone owns a piece of the action. Now, when John Lennon got killed in Sweden, I got on the radio, I could have gotten killed. Well, first I was happy it wasn't a Jewish guy killing him, but that's another story about racism in America. I think about these things. I said he was killed because some guy bought all the records, he bought all the books, he bought all the sweatshirts, he bought all the movies. And he actually owns $100 worth of John Lennon. And there's a million people who own $100 worth of John Lennon because John Lennon told $100 each of these people. You know, or whatever it is, or $500. But it's not give peace a chance or give love a chance. It's he's selling a product. And they tell how John Lennon was a soft, reserved guy. So, you know, the day before he died, he spent 3 days with Time magazine to get on the cover. So he knows when to push the stuff. Then he's suddenly this private person. I say there's no difference between the private and the public. Because when PC was saying even today, he's not pushing his new records or he's not doing a tour because he just came out with a new record. Well, so there's Olive Guthrie there, withering under my blistering attack. And I say, you know, they own you. They own a piece of you. So I said this on the radio in Sweden. I got a lot of angry calls. I said he was killed because one guy was more disappointed than everybody else is. In other words, everyone was aware that it's a hustle, but they had to blind themselves to it. And every once in a while, the guy goes over the edge a little bit. But there's one guy killing Lennon. There must be 10,000 that one would touch Leonard. You know, could still touch Pete Seeger. I've never seen Pete Seeger walk with dogs around him. I've seen Bob Dylan walking as police dogs now, or big guys walking around him. I never saw Olive Guthrie or any when they get involved. I was staying in this cheap hotel because we Madison Square Garden with the housing company. You see coming out of triple deck of limousine, six big guys. She doesn't walk on the street alone by herself. Same time, you see all these blacks living on the outside of Madison Square Garden, you know, sleeping there. Anyway, so Olive Guthrie feels bad, and Marjorie says, Izzy, you got to support young singers. I said, we're not talking about supporting young singers. We're talking about the audience and the contact with the singers. So at that session, there must have been 200 people. But Olive Guthrie is one of the clean guys compared to everybody else. I mean, he's still trying to do something. He's still trying to deal with public issues and things like that. But most of the others have forgotten about it now. Tom Paxton comes to Sweden. In 1980, say. A friend of mine is promoting him. And he says, I don't know my folk songs anymore. And he's doing a press conference in my store. I said, oh, I don't do folk songs anymore. That's very interesting. And he says, I write country songs now. It's country songs that wasn't man. Because he's not doing country songs now. And now he's on the cover. Then I see like a year later he's on the cover of Sing Out magazine. And Odette is on the cover of Sing Out magazine. I saw him do a concert at the big concert hall in Stockholm in 1975, which is putting down folk music. I just think to myself, I want to make money and I want to go as far as I can go. And that's the uncover. So again, it's the same thing like I told you when I saw Len Chandler. It's much different now. He's still writing good songs, which can never really take long. Very good. And when I told him, oh, well, I think on the way down, when he crossed the Russell Square Church, which I get hit by constantly. So, okay, we take a break. Cut off the shit.
One of the things that I'm interested in exploring is the development of some of the city folk singers or folkies that are identified in people's minds with the 60s scene.
Let's start with Jack Elliott, okay?
Fine, let's start with Jack Elliott. And I'm interested in among a number of things, I'm interested in whether or not you saw these people back then as people who were interested in continuing a folk music tradition such as yourself, or were interested in simply becoming popular artists in whatever genre could make it that year. But basically...
Okay, Jack Elliott. For my money, I've been to other places. He was the best folk singer that ever came out of America. And the woman singer was Joe Mapes. She can come to Chicago. And I idolized him. I didn't really know him. Then he came back from England in 1958. And I didn't know that his father was a dentist or a doctor. That he used to hang around with the doctor. But I did hear some records he made in England where he and Woody, I'm not sure where they recorded, 45s, they take off on each other. And Jack Elliott does a better job of Woody Guthrie than Woody Guthrie does. Woody Guthrie. And that Woody Guthrie, at some point, I said he couldn't take it anymore. He couldn't get rid of Jack Elliott. But when he came back from England, I put him on his first concert in America, actually, in modern times. And I feel bad about that. He doesn't give me credit for that. He doesn't mention that. Because Jack Elliott then very quickly, as part of this folk music movement that was becoming commercial, he's being left out of the commercial end of it. And he feels just as good as anybody else. I thought he was the best. So his records never sold. I listened to a record he made on Topic recently. And I'll tell you, my first reaction now, 30 years later, is this recorder could use a little mixing. I'm totally against it. In other words, you can hear a false start that somehow he doesn't remember where it should end. It's just like something for the 60s. I said, God, is that the stuff that I thought was fabulous? In other words, even I am affected by what I'm saying, because of this little controversy I had with Joe Boyd. When I said editing, I was still thinking editing. He's saying mixing. I felt that he could use a little mixing, and I think it's going to be a terrific shock for me to listen to these old Stinson recordings, including Bob Gibson, including anybody. I think it's going to be a severe shock for me, because now whether I like it or not, I'm thinking of new techniques of recording and things like that. You can't just not know me. I think it's hard.
Do you think Elliott didn't make it because of the luck of the draw, or because of his style, or he never did become a star?
He never became a star. He became very bitter, and he was bitter that he had to work for people like me. And he actually named me specifically